Hello, my name is Caroline Herden. I'm an EU policy researcher at Volco Europe. On today's Monday talk, we'll discuss the cooperation of Moldova with the European Union in the area of defense and security policy, and we'll explore ways the EU can build a closer cooperation in this area with the country, and this against the backdrop of growing Russian aggression. We are honored to be joined by His Excellency Ambassador Janis Mazeiks, head of the EU delegation to the Republic of Moldova. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
So, with Ukraine and Georgia, Moldova is one of the three associated Eastern Partnership countries which are most closely aligned with the EU in defense and security policy, and Moldova has declared its commitment to participate in new missions and to cooperate in cybersecurity and other areas of policy and defense security. So my first question is, considering the current provisions for cooperation between the EU and Moldova in security and defense, which area do you think necessitates the most progress going forward?
Could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear the end.
So considering the current provisions for security and defense between the EU and Moldova, which area do you think necessitates the most progress? Which area would benefit from more development going forward?
Okay. Thank you very much. So first, we must recognize really the context that the Russian aggression against Ukraine has also had a very significant impact on Moldova, and that refers both to the sector of defense as well as to Republic of Moldova's overall resilience. At this stage, we have no reason to believe that Republic of Moldova would be in imminent danger of military aggression. But what we continue to see is that the country continues to suffer a wide range of cyber and hybrid threats. Some of them have been really stepped up in the last months, like the biggest cyber attack on Moldova that the country has seen. And of course, we have also seen the weaponization of energy by Russia, and also by the weaponization of trade. On top of this, we have the possibility of a second wave of refugees from Ukraine. As you know, the country is hosting around 80,000 refugees, which is quite amazing for a country the size of Moldova. And this would put an additional burden on the country. So there are those vulnerabilities, and it is also important to have the renewal of the Moldova's strategic plans to reflect on these changes and to adapt strategic level thinking to the current security environment. There are clear needs to increase the capacity through training and retention of the Moldovan armed forces, and also a more transparent and efficient absorption mechanism, not only for the EU assistance, but also for receiving the bilateral assistance from other donors, not least to avoid duplication of efforts. In the border scale of things, it is important for Moldova to continue democratic reforms and modernization of the armed forces, because for a long time the armed forces of Moldova were under-supported by the country, to say the least. And so, of course, they need efficient and effective institutions, also military ones, to effectively respond in time of crisis. For us, this is again a part of our broader support to build up and strengthen the resilience of the country.
Very well. Since you've mentioned the training of military officers, I will start with that point. So how can the Moldovan defense minister has recently admitted, just like you mentioned, that the military forces in Moldova are inadequately trained and equipped. So how can you better facilitate the training of armed officers and help with defense procurement in Moldova?
Well, this is a new area for EU-Moldova cooperation, because the first time when we had military assistance was in December 2021, when it was decided to provide 7 million euro worth of support to the Republic of Moldova in military, medical, and engineering services. So we currently are in a situation when Further 40 million euros worth of support has been allocated for Republic of Moldova to strengthen the capacities through the European Peace Facility. This is non-lethal equipment. It covers logistics, mobility, command and control, unmanned aerial reconnaissance, and tactical communications units. This is not just the equipment, it is also the training provided for the Moldovan counterparts to operate these equipment. And of course, again, the context for this is the unjustified and unprovoked war of Russia in Ukraine, because this was the context where it was felt also the need to step up the support for Republic of Moldova. On top of this, we have a foreign policy instrument funded crisis response, which is worth 2.7 million euro to strengthen the cyber capacities, because as I already highlighted, this is one of the currently deficient points for Republic of Moldova. So this support will enable national cyber resilience. It will also enable cyber threats monitoring and reaction mechanism to identify possible cyber attacks and to respond adequately. So this project is not a short-term one. It will last for several years, and also for the next year we can also foresee, it is already foreseen that there will be further support from the European Peace Facility.
Very well. So another point that you mentioned in response to my first question was that Russia is increasingly using hybrid warfare tactics to achieve its goals in Moldova, such as espionage, subversion, and disinformation. So one can argue that developing Moldova's intelligence sector is just as important as providing military aid. So in the field of counterintelligence and intelligence sharing, how can cooperation be further facilitated? Would the solution better be situated at the delegations level, or through future PESCO projects, or even a new mission? And maybe a sub-question to that is, are there obstacles to cooperation between intelligence agencies in EU member states and ones in Moldova?
Okay, well, maybe I can start from the last question. And to the best of my knowledge, but then it is a bilateral issue, there are no limitations and there are no problems of cooperation between Moldovan intelligence agencies and individual EU member states, but then it is a bilateral cooperation which doesn't involve the European Union and its institutions. When it comes to intelligence sharing, this is a difficult area because intelligence does not fall within the remit of the EU competencies, so we can't really engage in that. Coming to your question about PESCO, this is possible. It can be done through a request by a third country to the member state that is coordinating their particular project. And again, this is member state in the lead, and then this request should have the detailed information why the third country, in this case Republic of Moldova, would be interested in participating in the project, in what scope and form, and then how it is ready to fulfill the relevant conditions.
Very well. Now we'd like to talk about a little bit more about the CSDP. So Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine have all participated in military and all civilian EU missions. However, however, they are currently not involved in early stages of the planning of these CSDP missions. So my question would be, what benefits would bring an expansion of the role of EAP partners in CSDP missions, and how can the EU better promote joint decision-making and joint ownership?
Okay, to start with, third countries can be involved in CSDP through various ways and means. However, the member states are very strict about preserving the decision-making autonomy of the European Union. So joint decision-making, joint ownership is not possible at present, because also the EU treaties do not have provisions on that. So third countries like Moldova are informed about CSDP missions and operations, but they do not participate in the decision-making process. They are, however, offered informal briefings during the preparatory stages of new missions and may be invited by the PSC to offer a contribution. And if that is the case and they are accepted as contributing third states, they have the rights under the terms of the relevant decisions, and they can then receive regular reporting on the mission in question. And yes, there are also other informal consultation mechanisms, like, for instance, PSC Plus, where also Moldova can take part as a candidate country for the EU membership. And this is a format that meets on an ad hoc basis.
Right. So do you think that this current provision allows for Moldova or other Ukraine or Georgia sharing their expertise on, especially if a mission is going to take place within Eastern Europe region? Does this allow for their expertise on these matters to be shared to the EU?
I think this is a question to be asked to the Moldovans, but I would note that in general, Moldovans are quite interested in, and quite ready. Also, they have been in the past to share their not only expertise, but also to shows their solidarity with EU member states. And it doesn't come only in the security area. Like, for instance, they have provided firefighters to Greece when there were forest fires in Greece, or have provided medical personnel to Romania when there was a particular COVID crisis in Romania. So the readiness is there. I think it's just about finding the best suited places for that cooperation.
Absolutely. Right. So my last question, I would like to address the EU's role in conflict settlement in Moldova. So to address the Transnistrian conflict, the EU aims to build cooperation between Chisinau and Tiraspol and advocates for confidence building measures. What more could the EU do to contribute to peaceful settlement of the conflict?
I think that first I must recall that for the European Union, we are supportive of a peaceful settlement in Republic of Moldova of the Transnistrian conflict, which fully observes the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Republic of Moldova in its internationally recognized borders, with a special status for the region of Transnistria. The EU is also participating as an observer in the 5+2 framework. However, at this stage, as you know, the 5+2 format has not been meeting, and which is understandable because two of the parties involved are at war with each other. So there have been not that much developments lately. However, the EU representative in the 5+2 format, Ms. Dorota Luci-Soliga, was recently visiting both Chisinau and Tiraspol to see how to move forward on this. So from our side, there have been two very meaningful ways how we have been contributing to this process. One you already mentioned, that is the confidence building measures, which were started in 2009, and currently it's already in its fifth iteration. This fifth iteration will end in 2023, and it has the budget of almost 15 million euros. So a number of projects being implemented either in parallel on the right bank and on the left bank of the Dniester River, or jointly. And this is really for building trust among the communities. Just yesterday, I was, for instance, awarding grants to civil society organizations within that project. So it is advancing quite well. So some of it is civil society related, some of it is local authorities, some of it is also business. So these small steps that maintain and hopefully expand the links between the two banks of the Dniester River. The other element I would like to highlight is the framework that we have in place from the association agreement and in particular the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, because this also brings Transnistrian region closer to both the European Union and in cooperation with the authorities in Chisinau. And one indication of that is that last year's data showed that 1/3 of trade from the Transnistrian region goes to the right bank of Republic of Moldova, and 1/3 goes to EU. So this is something that really is another point of attraction for the people on the left bank with respect to the European Union. And finally, we also have the EU Border Assistance Mission, which is playing a crucial role in, again, facilitating very concrete, tangible things on supporting the two banks on issues like transport, customs, veterinary and phytosanitary standards, law enforcement. So they are bringing them together on discussions on these technical issues. So we'll keep on our engagement across all these areas as much as it will be possible in the future as well.
Thank you very much. And lastly, would you like to touch upon the risk that the Russian aggression represents for Transnistria at the moment, or is that going to, do you see that situation worsening or moving in one direction or another?
As I said in the beginning of the interview, we do not see any imminent security risks for Republic of Moldova, and frankly, with Ukraine regaining control over Kherson, these risks have diminished further.
Very well. Well, on this positive note, I'm afraid we have to end this interview. Thank you very much again for being our guest this morning. Thank you for sharing your insights into this very important and relevant topic. As a reminder, this interview will be available on all of our social media platforms and on our website. So thank you again, Your Excellency, and have a great day.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.